And we are live for the final MLB strategy show of the regular season. It ends today for the regular season for strategy shows, that is. Although maybe that's not true. I don't think there is one tomorrow. You'll have live before locks and stuff, but the final Friday, the MLB regular season, we will have playoff slates on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. There is no baseball on Monday. There is no baseball on Friday. So you'll get me back for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. But today is the final regular season strategy show for me being Josh Engelman. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engelman. Been dropping NBA previews each day. Been dropping MLB top stacks and top pitchers on my Tails account. You can go to oddshopper.com to follow along there. NFL Sim Strategy Show is either just finishing up right now or just finished up. If you want to check that out, that's on the YouTube channel as well. What's up, y'all? I know it's going to be a slow trickle while everybody gets in here today. Tonight, you will have MLB Live before lock. I believe it's Eric and Greg. I can confirm that in 1 second. I am correct. Eric and Greg on Live before lock tonight at 6. Very interesting slate today, too. From a pitching perspective, at least. 12-gamer. We'll start at the top. Just address what this slate looks like. Shane Bieber, your most expensive pitcher today at 9,800. Also at the top of the top two pitcher odds and at the top of ownership, 34% owned. However, 19% top two pitcher odds. Not a single pitcher is north of 20. We have two guys sitting right at 15. And then we've got a 6-man group between 10% top two and 13% top two, with most of those guys right around that 10% ownership mark. And then we have one more additional talking point. He is sitting at the bottom of the 10% group. We've got a 4K pitcher throwing in San Francisco against the Colorado Rockies. 14.5% owned. We'll touch on what that looks like in the Sims in a second because we're going to have to do quite a bit of research here. In fact, we might have to lead off with it. Let me take a little sip of Gatorade here. Okay. We're going to go to the sim results first because I want you guys to see this. Now, I've done no digging, so we might find out that this is not at all what it's going to look like, but we got to do it first. If I pull up my first draft of Sims for today and show you guys the pitching exposures, Trevor McDonald, 4K, currently 11% owned in the pool, currently in 60% of the top 150 lineups that we have favorited. Let's dig in to Trevor McDonald. Now, if we're talking about this from a major league perspective this year, he's thrown 123 pitches. So we're off to FanDuel, to Fangraphs. Whatever button I just pressed is not the button I wanted to press. There we go. Better. That's the button I wanted to press. So Trevor McDonald, 24 years of age. He is the number 8 prospect in the Giants system. not in the top 100, a completely average pitcher in terms of scouting output. 50 fastballs, dead average. 55 slider, slightly above. 50 future changeup, right at average. 50 command, right at average. If we take a look at what he's done so far this season, because he had 24 starts in AAA this year, 142 innings, 23% K rate, 10% walk rate, 487 xFIP. He's a guy at best. Gives up some power. Like this is not a guy that we should care about from a skill set perspective. The reason we care about him is because he's the flat min 4K. And that is think about it just relative to Ohtani. I don't know what Ohtani's salary is today, but we know what the range is. This starting pitcher is like 2,000 plus less than Shohei Ohtani. So there's nothing awful about the numbers. He's just not good. The best thing you could hope for is that he grows up to be an average pitcher. The more likely scenario, he's like a 4th, 5th starter. But again, he's 4K. So let's run to Odd Shopper. And let's see if he has any props in the market right now. For guys like this, it's not surprising if he doesn't. I'm hoping we've got some additional data. So let's find Ronnie McDonnie. Trevor McDonald, strikeout prop for today. It's the one that's at the bottom of the screen. My face is covering his name. Under 4.5 strikeouts at -134. I mean, right out of the gate, I'm surprised it's 4.5. Even if it's juiced to the under like this, 4 is fine for a 4K guy. That right there is helpful. One thing I didn't touch on when we talked about his AAA stats. So he threw 6 innings, faced 24 batters 5 days ago for the Giants. Throughout the minors, 6 innings, 7 innings, 7 innings. There's no depth problem for Trevor McDonald. He's not in a situation where he's going 2 innings today. I mean, like he can if he gets bombed, but he has the ability to throw a full game if he needs to. That's why 4K looks so good. Do I think that, like, if he has an outs prop, it's probably better than you would expect. Now, he doesn't have one for right now. We'll see if that pops up later. I really like that strikeout prop for what this is. But then the question becomes, do we really need 60% of Trevor McDonald today? And I think the answer is like mostly yes. This is a 4K pitcher today that's not limited in any way, or at least shouldn't be limited in any way. And the Colorado Rockies have a 3.6 run implied total. The value here is really difficult to avoid, because the next closest value options we have are a 6K Joey Wentz, who essentially has the same top 2 odds, but costs $2,000 more. You've got Yu Darvish as another double-digit top value guy. His top 2 pitcher odds are 1.5 percentage points behind Trevor McDonald, and he's $2,200 more expensive. German Marquez at 5K against San Fran, that's $1,000 more expensive, half the top 2 pitcher odds, and an implied total 1.5 runs higher than Trevor McDonald. So my question to you guys is, how do we avoid this? Because I don't think we do. Now, maybe you want to just say like, well, I probably don't need 60%. And I can get behind that. If I just take 10% off of him right away, It's going to trim the ass end of this and probably bring him down a decent chunk, but we're still going to have a stand. Yeah, look, a 10% negative ROI bump to Trevor McDonald brought him down to 47 from 60. I don't see the path to getting away from him today. We'll see what that looks like in the single lineup sim when we start building out some of these lineups. But the next question that leads us to, just by taking that negative boost, Shane Bieber ends up being the top guy. Most projected pitcher, highest projected pitcher, highest top 2 odds, ends up being in 53% of lineups. So let's take a look at the matchup here for Biebs. Small sample for Bieber, as we know, on the season. 274 pitches thrown to lefties, 281 pitches thrown to righties. Mowing down lefties in that small sample. Not mowing down righties in that sample. And struggling aggressively to slow these guys down. So let's take a look at the prop market and strikeout props for Shane Bieber. Strikeout prop for Bieber is sitting at 6.5. Bit of juice to the under, but still, we're getting him to 6. If we take a look at the outs prop for Biebs, 17.5 outs, minus 180 to the over. This is a guy that's expected to go 6 innings with very little struggle, it seems. And then the earn run prop, over 1.5 at minus 160. If we want to take a look at the Rays against righties so far this season for their active roster, we've got 12th in WRC plus. They don't strike out with any sort of frequency. Middle of the pack in ISO. Now, they don't walk a lot. Second lowest walk rate to righties. So there shouldn't be a ton of free passes here. That's the first step. The strikeout stuff certainly appears to be real per the prop market. And then just to hit on the Blue Jays park, I don't know why I picked TD Ballpark there. This season, 118 park factor for homers. It does play up power. 94 park factor for strikeouts. It does play down strikeouts. 106 park factor for runs. It does play up offense. So now the question becomes, do we like Shane Bieber because of his ownership? Because he is not all that different from our boy Slade, Emmett Sheehan. He's not even really all that different than a $9,400 George Kirby, save for a matchup against the Dodgers. But a 19% top 2 pitcher odds compared to 15 here is an extra 10% ownership. For Kirby, an extra 6% of top 2 pitcher odds are doubling ownership. So it's not that I don't like Bieber. He clearly profiles pretty well, but I don't think that he profiles enough that I want to get him at the expense of others. So I'm also going to take 10% off of Bieber here. Again, I want him. I think anywhere in that 30% range is very reasonable. I don't see anything that makes me want to get significantly more. So right there, 36.7% pool ownership, 36.7% regular ownership. Spot on the number in this case. And I like that. But what we need to figure out is who's the next best guy? I just realized that I don't know how frequently I ever say this. Is it Saccone? Or does that get said differently in Italian? Whatever. You know who I mean. We're 2xing and then some, both him and Joey Wentz. So those have to be the next 2 guys that we look at. Let's go with Ciccone first. Second best top two pitcher odds. Well, basically tied with Emmett Sheehan with top two pitcher odds, but better value because he's $400 cheaper. However, same top two pitcher odds, better value, close to half the ownership of Sheehan. So let's take a look at Ciccone here against Texas. 23% K rate to lefties across 1,000 pitchers, or across 1,000 pitches. 17.5% strikeout rate to righties, just shy of 1,000 pitches. He has gotten absolutely destroyed from a power perspective. 230 x ISO to lefties, 230 x ISO to righties. The x WOBA is not much better. 360 and 355. So at the very least, the profile of Ciccone, not helpful. If we want to take a look at how Texas has been against righties, they have the 28th ranked WRC plus, third worst overall offense against righties. I mean, if you want to be technical, it's basically second. No one's on Colorado's corner. Now, Texas strikes out, nothing too crazy, but they're sitting at 22%. It's dead middle of the pack. They also don't walk. Tied with Tampa, just like we talked about, but 20 points less of ISO. Texas, the sixth lowest ISO of any team against righties. And I think that is the reason you look at someone like Ciccone a little bit more frequently. Over 1.5 earned runs at -156. If we take a look at Ciccone's strikeout prop, I'm guessing 4.5 to the over. 4.5, slight juice to the over. I'm a genius. And then finally, the outs prop, 17.5, juice to the over. So we're expecting depth in this game. We're expecting 6 innings. The earned run prop is not as problematic as you would expect given his profile. And this is just not a team that has a ton of pop in it. Do I love getting to him? No. At 8K with a 3.6 run implied total and just 14% ownership compared to what else is at the top. Yeah, I think it makes some sense to, come in that like 2x the field. If he's 15, you want 30. I think that makes a ton of sense to me. Sheehan is a different conversation for a couple different reasons. One, obviously, the strikeout stuff is exceptional. 29.5% K rate and 450 pitches to lefties. 30% K rate in 670 pitches to righties. There's no power. There's no X WOBA. And he's 8,400. All of that is unequivocally an excellent start. Now, if we talk about active roster righties, there is no worse matchup. Seattle has the highest WRC plus in baseball against right-handed hitters, and it's not even close. They are 6 points ahead of the Mets at 126. Not to mention, they have the second highest ISO. Big old power. 22% K rate, nothing exciting. Sixth highest walk rate. All of those things are massive negatives for the prospect of going to Sheehan. However, this game is not in LA. It is in Seattle. And this game being in Seattle takes a bit of a bite out of everything that we just mentioned for the Seattle side of this game. Because now, when we look at the T-Mobile Park factors, we've got a slight lean from a power perspective. We've got an 85 runs prop. There's no scoring in Seattle. It plays up strikeouts in a massive way. 113 strikeout park factor. What I want to see very quickly here, how has Seattle hit at home relative to the league? Because if it's like average, That's scary. Seattle at home, second highest WRC plus, fourth highest ISO. So they've had no problem at home. But remember, that's an average across 2,800 plate appearances. Means there's, 1,400 plate appearances worth of below average guys, likely. Emmett Sheehan is much more on the top 20% side of this. But given the park, I think there's more upside in Sheehan than Ciccone. I think the floor of Ciccone is higher than Sheehan. So as we look at Sheehan's outs prop, this is one of the big problems. 15.5 juice to the under. We're expecting 5 innings here in comparison to Ciccone at 6. Now, if we look at the strikeout prop for Sheehan, 5.5 juice to the over. Reminder, Ciccone's at 4.5 juice to the over. So extra strikeout for Sheehan in less outs, in 3 less outs. Much, much, much different strikeout situation here, particularly because of the park. But when we look at the sim results, we're more than 2xing Ciccone, but we're dead neutral on Sheehan. And that, I think, is one easy spot where we can -5 Ciccone, +5 Sheehan. Those two guys should now look pretty similar in exposures, and we should be around 1.5 to 2x both of them. Sheehan jumps to 32%, 50% higher than what he has. Ciccone at 26, essentially double what his ownership is. We're really starting to dial in this pitcher exposure. But now we got to touch on Joey Wentz, because he's the next guy in here that we're getting more than 2x on. Wentz is 6K, so we're going for another value direction. Remember, these value plays, even Ciccone, Sheehan, Wentz, McDonald, Darvish, if we get there, I don't think we will on this show. All this pay down does is make the pay ups at hitting be more interesting. So let's look at Joey Wentz. Wentz taking on Pittsburgh. We know Pittsburgh blows. Joey Wentz is, for a lefty, terrible against other lefties. 237 x ISO allowed across 500 pitches this season, along with a 376 x WOBA. None of that's good. 22% K rate to righties, 123 x ISO, 311 x WOBA. Much more manageable for Joey Wentz here. What do the lovely Pittsburgh Pirates do against lefties this season? I'm quite confident these numbers are going to be tiny. 7th lowest WRC plus. But again, for all intents and purposes, tied for 3rd behind the Nats in Texas. More importantly, a 27% K rate, just 2nd to the Washington Nationals. Keith, enough. You're not helping me here. Silly puppies. Now, Pittsburgh does walk a ton. Lefties have put them on base close to 11% of the time. They also don't hit for a lick of power. Now, technically, they're 14th, but that's a 139 ISO. You can see the range of this is 122 to 208. You're much closer to the 122 than you are at the top. It really separates at the top. These guys just don't hit for any power. So no power, tons of strikeouts, one of the worst offenses in baseball against left-handed pitchers. So what do Joey Wentz's props look like for today? Wentz has a 5.5 strikeout prop, slightly juiced to the under. I think that is a very positive data point for Joey Wentz given his price. Outs prop for Joey Wentz. Wentz does not have a posted outs prop as of this moment. I assume he has an earned run prop that's manageable. 2.5, heavy juice to the under. There's certainly not anything negative to say about Joey Wentz, given his top 2 pitcher odds and given his current ownership. Don't mind 2xing somebody like that. And that's exactly what's showing up here right now. Maybe a little heavy, nothing crazy. So I've hit on everybody that's popping in the Sims so far. So chat to the 83 of you that are in the door right now. Do you have another pitcher that you guys like that you want me to take a look at? Because we've now looked at McDonald, Bieber, Sheehan, Wentz, Ciccone. Who do you guys have your eye on? While I wait for those, it's a perfect opportunity if you're here to hit the like button. We still got a couple good MLB slates left to go. Obviously, NFL is here in full effect. Perfect opportunity, though, to sign up at Stokastic, especially if you're interested in the NFL. Got the big Sunday coming up. We've got promo codes for you, so click the links in the description. Come sign up. You've got Showdown, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. You get the full main slate or splitting it. You know, you can play the main, the early, the afternoon, and you've got Sunday Night Football, and you've got Monday Night Football. It's the perfect opportunity to come in on the NFL side. All right, Lou says Rodgers. Hobbs says Sandy. Alexander, Alcantara, and Rodgers. Jason Alexander and Will Warren. Trevor Rodgers. Priester, Warren. All right, so Rodgers and Warren for sure. Likely. Trevor Rodgers, 9,600 on the road in New York. Terrible top 2 pitcher odds. No ownership. 4.7 run implied total. Jason Alexander, 6,500. Great strikeout matchup. We'll take a peek at him. Will Warren, 7,400, same matchup. Hard to deny that he looks a bit better than Trevor Rodgers relative to salary, but okay. Quick peek at Trevor Rodgers. You know, there are obvious, I mean, everything here for Trevor Rodgers stands out. Great strikeout stuff against lefties. They don't touch him at all. Solid strikeout stuff against righties. They don't really hit him all that hard. Trevor Rodgers is obviously good. That's not any news for anybody, but the Yankees have the highest WRC plus against lefties in the league. They walk as much as anybody in the league. They do strike out a fair amount at 9%. They're also the best power hitting team in baseball against lefties. And we're in a ballpark that's certainly not going to be beneficial to Trevor Rodgers. We've got a Yankee Stadium that has a 112 home run park factor. Strikeouts are neutral. Runs are basically neutral. But you could be privy to a little bit of power against a team with some truly legendary right-handed power. I just don't see the need. Certainly a pay up to be contrarian option if you're going to like a really chalky stack today, which doesn't totally exist. I can't really see the benefit of wanting to take the risk on Trevor Rodgers. Now, the opposite side of this one is the Will Warren piece. Warren gets a date with the Orioles. All the park factor stuff I said is still the same. Warren does not strike out lefties. They hit him pretty hard. Righties don't touch him, and he mows them all down. 29% K rate, 1,200 pitches, 150 ISO, 307 xWOBA. So you want the righties for Will Warren. Let's take a look at the strikeout props here, not just for Trevor Rogers, but also for Will Warren. Rogers is at 5.5, juice to the under. Will Warren's at 4.5, heavy juice to the over. Trevor Rogers and Will Warren have essentially the same strikeout prop today, and it's basically 5. Will Warren's got a 15.5 outs prop. Pretty massive juice to the under. Trevor Rogers has a 15.5 outs prop. Pretty sizable juice to the under. If you're taking one of Will Warren or Trevor Rogers today, I don't know how you can make that answer be Rogers. I think Will Warren's pretty clearly ahead of him. Higher top 2 odds, even though he's $2,200 cheaper. The value I don't even have to touch on. There's not a worse value pitcher than Trevor Rogers today. And it's still only 10% ownership for Warren. So I'm certainly putting Warren ahead of Rogers. Just because of the matchup in the park, he's behind those 8K guys that we looked at. And then Rogers, Warren. I guess we got 2 Alexanders, 6,500. We know the strikeout matchup is exceptional against LA. These guys just K at a preposterous rate. There are no strikeouts, though, for Jason Alexander. He gets blasted against lefties, only strikes out 20% of righties. If we look at his strikeout prop, I'm guessing it's sitting at 4.5. That might even be 4.5, maybe a little bit of juice to the over. 4.5, a little bit of juice to the under. I don't need... I don't need him. Hold on. This puppy's losing his mind. I don't know how I'm going to make it the next 28 minutes. I see no interest in Jason Alexander. And there's a reason that his name didn't show up in any of the top 150 lineups that we have, that we simmed. We certainly have some Will Warren just slightly north of the field, so I think that makes a lot of sense. We got one random Trevor Rogers lineup. I'm happy with the breakdown that we've hit so far. So now, that leads us into stacks. So let's break down the hitting side of this one. And then we leave. There's no more MLB strategy for the regular season. Sad days. Sad days. Lay down. So we only have one team on the entire slate that got to 10% ownership, and they just barely got over it. And then after those guys, 7, 7, 6, 6, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4. It is flat today. What's your number one stack? In top stack, your number 2 in top value, and your overwhelming number 1 stack for today is the Kansas City Royals. 1 sec. Hey, asshole. No, there's this. There's this. Or lay down. Being bad. Damn dog trying to scratch his way through the floor. Let's talk KC. In Oakland. You guys are well aware now of what that park can do. And the real interesting piece for this is that they get to face Luis Morales, who has allowed a 252 X ISO across 400 pitches to righties and a 180 X ISO across 320 pitches to lefties. So if we just take a quick peek at Luis Morales, the 23-year-old Morales, the number 4 prospect in the A's system. Big-time fastball, pretty good curveball, a changeup that isn't very good now but could be, and absolutely no command whatsoever. And we can reference that by taking a look at his minors numbers this year. 89 innings pitched, did have a 11 Ks per 9, 3.5 walks. It's a 29% K rate, 10% walk rate, 404 xFIP. There are some strikeouts here. does have some power problems and can put some dudes on if things aren't going all that great. Not to mention, the biggest piece of all of this is the park in which this game is being played at, because Kansas City's park is awful for offense. Oakland's park, not so much. 113 park factor for homers, 117 park factor for runs. We should expect plenty of offense here for Kansas City. And just to touch on it, the active roster for Kansas City against righties, 14th in WRC plus, 105. Their ISO, 170, dead middle of the pack. The really interesting thing here, 16.9% K rate, lowest in the league against righties. They're going to get the bat on the ball here today. And it doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a struggle to do it. They have the highest ceiling, the highest team total, and they're as cost effective as any team can be. My assumption when I look at the sim results is that we have a lot of Kansas City. Third highest 5-man stacks. Another 7% 4-mans, twice as much as the pool. 9% 3-mans, 3xing the entire pool. No team was exposed more in the sims than Kansas City. They're in 23% of lineups. I don't have a negative thing to say there. I completely agree with it. They're so cheap and so easy to get to. The interesting thing, though, is we have so much salary savings at pitcher. My assumption is that when we get to Kansas City stacks, we're also getting, and I'm just picking these names because it doesn't matter what the slate looks like, but I feel like we're going to have enough room to get like Ronald Acuna, Ohtani, and like Judge. So do I have, let me just open my notes app quickly. All right. So our top sim teams were Houston, Milwaukee, KC, Houston, Milwaukee, KC, San Francisco. I want to make a note of that because I want to sim a lineup in the single lineup sim. So let's bump that. And then let's make ourselves a Kansas City stack to see what this ends up looking like. Because I think we just have like a truly preposterous amount of salary to work with here. So Salvador Perez in, Bobby Witt in, Pasquantino in, Adam Frazier in, maybe Yaz. Let's go Yaz. So that's a 5-man KC stack. I'm not going to touch the pitchers. I'm not going to touch the third baseman or the 2 outfielders. Let's just see what it looks like. So we get Shane Bieber, Trevor McDonald, as expected. We get Matt Chapman in at third, Jarren Duran in an outfield spot, and as I fully expected, Aaron Judge as the final outfield spot. 106.7 projection, 144 ownership. Let's see what our baseline is for the first lineup we're simulating in the single lineup sim. 57.5%. Now that looks pretty damn good to start the day, but I think we can do a little better. So we went to Bieber and we went to the pay down, which isn't surprising. Trevor McDonald is on a completely different tier. So I'm going to put Trevor McDonald in, but I'm not going to go to Bieber here at 9,800. I want to see what I can do with more salary. So let's just get real weird. If I take Joey Wentz, do you guys see this right now? If you'd go double pay down for McDonald and Wentz and have KC, I've got 6,500 per spot left. So it's able to give me Jose Ramirez, Aaron Judge, and Juan Soto, and leave $1,100 on the table. Let's sim this. There's nothing under. Stop. Hey, enough. No. You know, it's really fun to run a lineup like that and come back, and it's sitting here at 90% sim ROI, 0.3% chance to win, 2.8% chance of a top 10 lineup, and a 41% cash rate. Nailed it. Nailed it with $1,100 left on the table. So the only thing I want to know is, if I have $1,100 left, the best pitcher that oh, son of a bitch. Nice. Still there. Figured it wasn't. If we look at the pitchers that we can get to, we went to Wentz, and he is the most expensive pitcher that we can roster. So if I add Wentz, can I improve Trevor McDonald? I don't think that I can. And I can't. He's projected for 4 more points than anybody else there. The only thing I'm curious about is, because I assume I took the top 2 outfielders in Judge and Soto, which I did. Technically, Ohtani can get in there as well. I assume Jose Ramirez. Yeah, Jose Ramirez is the highest projected third baseman as well. So that really is taking just about everything we can take. The only thing I want to see now is, can we go to a slightly different combination of pitchers? What if it's Will Warren and Joey Wentz? And we get Ramirez, Judge, Elio Ramos. Only $100 left. $72, another gem. So we looked at this Kansas City easy value to start. The next team that we had most exposed was the Houston Astros. They're second in top stack. They are third in top value. They're 3% less owned than Kansas City, and they're the clear second best team based on stack score. We go from 10.3 to 8.5 down to 5.8. So we clearly need to look at Houston here. In LA, Hendricks on the hill clearly doesn't strike people out. Doesn't really get hit all that hard, but certainly does not miss bats. If we transition to a Houston build, how much different does this start to look? Because they're a good value. They're as good of a value as KC, between 9.5 to 10%. So if we go to Houston and try to do the same thing we just did, and remember, the goal we have here now, I saved that third lineup, 105, 104.5 projection, 113 ownership. That will dictate where we are actually going to be as we start to look through this stuff. So if we grab Houston and we want to do it to get some value, we're going to take the 2 technically worst values for Houston, even though they're still 2x guys. That's great. Altuve and Diaz in, Correa in, Jesus Sanchez in. That leaves us first short. I'm going to take another outfielder here. Maybe I'm not actually. Myers hits 8th. Cole hits 9th. I can't take Paredes. I don't want to take Pena because I think that we're going to have more than enough salary to get Witt but I also don't want to take Christian Walker because I think we have more than enough salary to get a good first baseman. I'm going to take Jake Myers just to start. Now, after we take Myers, I think this is going to be like Bieber, McDonald, and a ton of good payups. Bieber, McDonald, Ohtani, Judge, Witt. See, this is what I'm talking about for these stacks today. And this is what I'm talking about with Trevor McDonald. I think we're going to see his ownership climb today, but he's going to dictate a lot this morning. But that Houston stack, along with our top pitcher and our top value SP2, allows us to get Ohtani, Judge, and Witt 6,400, 5,800, 6,500. That's a 103.4 projection, a little bit lighter than we had before. 134 ownership. But we can improve this pretty easily. Now that's 72% sim ROI. I think we can improve this from an ownership perspective because we're taking on 24% ownership for Witt, 18 more for Judge, only 12 for Ohtani, which I do like here today. But if we pull Judge, we pull Witt, and we pull Ohtani, we pull Bieber and McDonald, and we just get away from... I just want to get away from 34% ownership for Bieber. I don't want to put Jason Alexander in this lineup. Let's see what happens if we just put in Ciccone. It still gives us Bieber. Then it's Pasquantino, Witt, and Duran. Slightly lower FP, slightly higher ownership. I'm not even going to bother with it. Because we need to shave ownership here. So I'm going to pick the two pitchers. Let's just go double middle. Ciccone, Will Warren. Gives us Pasquantino, Witt, Judge. Now that's where it gets interesting. Because we've shaved a lot off of projection. You see, we're down to 101.8. We've given up about 3 FP here. We did cut the ownership a little bit, but honestly, it seems like too much. Or not enough, I guess, on the ownership side compared to... What about... Will 5% randomness give us enough here? Okay, 5% randomness gave us Bieber, Sheehan, Pasquantino, Witt, Elio Ramos. This is going to be in that 50-60 range again. Hobbs, I don't really think you understand what we're doing here. 70.5% sim ROI, another solid lineup here for Houston. So what we need to do before we get out of here is look at something that isn't a great value. Milwaukee showed up a lot for us. They're a dreadful value against Zach Littell today. San Francisco against Herman Marquez is half the value of Kansas City. How much does this change by going to a stack that's not as cost effective? Because San Francisco right now is 5th in stack score. So what does it look like if we go to a team like San Francisco? Obviously, we don't love the park. But what if we're paying a lot more for some of these hitters? Let's be very clear here. Obviously, Devers is going in. Adames is going in. Patrick Bailey is going in. Matt Chapman is going in. And then Elio Ramos is going in. Now, I fully expect Trevor McDonald to be a part of this. And if I'm going to stack San Francisco, I'm more than okay with that. Bieber, McDonald, Altuve, Judge, Rooker. 103.6 on the projection, 119 ownership. We're down a point. We're up in ownership. This is going to be like a 60 sim ROI. $72 again. Difficult to be mad at that one. Leaving second base open is going to make it hard to make any realistic pitching changes. You know, McDonald just slots in so easily there. What if I take a slight haircut on Sheehan? That still leaves us 5,600 at second in the 2 outfield spots. Altuve, Judge, Soto, 102.3, 107.8. Just 50% there. I think we have enough time to look at one more, and I think we want to get off the beaten path for it. If you guys have a team that you want me to look at right now and build one out for, let me know who that's going to be. We've got Pittsburgh sitting 4th in our stack score. The A's are sitting 3rd in stack score. They're twice as owned as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the ultimate value stack. That would look a lot like Kansas City. The Braves are sitting there against Mitch Keller. The Mets are looking pretty interesting as a super pay-up team against Sandy Alcantara. K. McD. Tampa, 4th lowest stack score. That's a tough sell. Steven Leibowitz with the Mets, you're getting warmer. We'll see who else pops into chat, leading us in some direction. But no, I can't look at Tampa against Bieber. I agree that Bieber is highly owned. I'd rather just not have Bieber than stack Tampa. There's Milwaukee. We got 2 Mets, 2 Milwaukees. Now, Milwaukee did show up for us. Milwaukee was the 2nd most owned team in the Sims. I think that's got to be the answer then. At home, taking on Cincy, Zach Littell on the hill. Very expensive Milwaukee stack. 2% top value. 9th lowest mark of any team. So if we're going to go to Milwaukee, it doesn't matter if we're going lefties or righties. They'll all touch him. We're going to want Yelich, Churio, Contreras, Vaughn, probably Turang, Churio, Frelick, Turang, Yelich, Contreras. No, that's not right. One of those guys weren't supposed to be there? Yelich, Churio, Turang, Contreras, Vaughn, not Frelick. Frelick out, Vaughn in. Steven, I'll see you later. All right. This is going to be the 4K do of McDonald, Bieber, McDonald, Maikel Garcia, Bobby Witt, Helio Ramos, 102.5 projection, 110 ownership. Yeah, again, it's just going to be in that like 40 to 50 range. It's really hard to pull that ownership down any further than that. Oh boy, was I wrong. Turns out we built the best one we've had so far. That's really interesting to me. I guess that ownership must have been pretty interesting. 95% sim ROI on Milwaukee, and we didn't even try to really improve this in any way, which I find fascinating. So that was McDonald and Bieber. Can we free up enough if we take Will Warren? Warren, McDonald, Chapman, Witt, Judge. Now, we've destroyed the ownership. We've also come in a few fantasy points low in FP. We've cut 4 points, but we've also cut about 20% of ownership. I'm interested in this. This could be massive. Another exceptional sim ROI, 93%, 0.3% chance to win, just a 34% cash rate. I really like this as a tournament lineup. Because even taking a relatively cost-ineffective Milwaukee stack, we're still getting Judge and Bobby Witt and Matt Chapman. And that's just going to Will Warren. If we didn't want it to be Will Warren, you know, there's probably a case to be made for Joey Wentz here. Wentz, Bieber, Correa, Witt, Anthony Santander. This is going to be another good one. This is going to be 50, 60, 70, 80, something there. Yeah, 69. Now that's the way that we end it. Bless you, single lineup simulator. This is the way we end the MLB regular season MLB strategy shows with a 69 sim ROI. Well, this is the ultimate cherry on top. 0.2% chance to win, 2.4% chance of a top 10% lineup, and a 34% cash rate. There is no better way to leave this show than with a 69. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys putting up with me over the past month after I took over from Lofty. Again, we're going to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for these bigger playoff slates. After that, it's all slate dependent. We just don't know how many games are going to be on each day. So thank you guys for being here. This was fantastic. Make sure you're checking me out on Twitter. I'm dropping NBA team preview articles every single day. I started with 4 absolute ass teams, the 4 worst teams in the league. Today, you guys are getting the Houston Rockets. Don't miss it. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button on your way out the door. I'll see you guys on Tuesday.